The moment I saw the deed in his hands, I knew we were already too late. My aunt's living room was supposed to be neutral ground, the kind of place where no one would suspect anything. Soft lighting, a bookshelf with mismatched volumes, the faint scent of lavender from a vase on the side table. But the second Clint stepped through the door, the air in the room shifted. His tailored suit was pressed, his shoes polished, his smile too wide. He carried himself like a man who had already won. I lunged across the table before he could even sit down, my fingers curling into fists. "What the hell do you want?" I demanded, my voice raw with anger. My aunt just sighed, her fingers brushing my arm in that slow, soothing motion she used when I was a kid. "Relax, Jamie," she said, her voice calm as a pond. "Clint's just thorough." The word hung in the air like a threat. I remembered the way he'd shown up at my uncle's funeral, shaking hands with everyone like he was already part of the family. The way he'd later stood in my kitchen, a laser measure in his hand, tapping notes into his phone as he studied the walls. "Just getting a sense of the space," he'd said, his voice smooth, professional. I kicked him out that night, but not before I'd seen the glint in his eye. The way he'd studied me, as if I were a piece of furniture he could measure, price, and decide whether to keep or discard. That's when I knew I had to act. I called my brother first. He was the only one who might understand. "Clint's been at my place," I said, my voice tight, "asking about my guitar collection." My brother didn't hesitate. "He's been to everyone. He's got a list." Then my sister texted, shaking. "He was at the coffee shop. Pressed me for details about my alimony payments." I set the meeting for Sunday. Neutral ground. My aunt's living room. The same place Clint had just walked into. The second he stepped through the door, I knew. He wasn't just gathering intel. He was already the general in this war. He spread papers across the coffee table like a card sharp dealing a rigged hand. Deeds, bank statements, a color-coded spreadsheet of our family's debts and assets. My cousin's truck, my brother's retirement fund, even my grandmother's wedding ring. Somehow he dug up the appraisal. My aunt beamed. "See? He's making sure everything's fair." Fair. The word stuck in my throat. I remembered the way Clint had looked at my uncle at the funeral, the way he'd nodded along like he already knew everything, the way he'd been everywhere. At the hardware store when I bought paint, at the park where my niece played, always with that same polite smile, always with questions. Then he dropped the bomb. "Your uncle promised me the lake house," he said, sliding a typed contract across the table. Signed and dated. I stared at the signature. It wasn't my uncle's. I'd seen his handwriting 1,000 times, shaky with that weird loop on his YS. This was clean. Too clean. My brother's face darkened. "That's a forgery." Clint didn't even flinch. "Prove it." That's when I saw it, the chink in his armor. He'd been so focused on the big assets, he'd missed the one thing he couldn't fake. My uncle's old hunting journal. The real one tucked in my nightstand, filled with his actual scrawl. Page after page of memories, not numbers. I pulled it from my bag and slapped it onto the table. Uncle's handwriting. Compare it. The room went silent. My aunt's smile faltered. Clint's fingers twitched toward the papers, but he didn't move. He knew. We all did. By Monday, Clint was gone. My aunt, finally seeing the truth, packed his bags herself. The lake house stayed in the family. The legal documents mysteriously disappeared. And the lesson? Some people don't just want a piece of the pie, they want the whole bakery. But greed has a way of tripping over its own feet. We burned the forgeries that night, the crackling flames casting shadows on the walls. And for the first time in weeks, I slept like a man who'd won.